There are two truths that we know in our politics recently. The first is that Donald Trump will always be siding with his buddy Vladimir Putin, and Jasmine Crockett will always be calling out Donald Trump in the perfect way. And those two things came together today when Jasmine Crockett confronted Donald Trump and really all of MAGA in front of Congress for their praise of Putin, their defense of Putin, and their abandonment of our ally in Ukraine. Jasmine Crockett has been on a tear recently, and this might be the best example yet. We are going to get into it all and how much it enraged Donald Trump. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. And before we get into that call out from Jasmine Crockett, she started it off by talking about the Republican attacks on USAID. And so I think we got to take a look at that right here.
Is that as members of Congress, we do have congressional oversight to the extent that we actually travel the world. We go, we sit down with world leaders, we talk to them about the programs that we have, we talk to them about trade. We also have an opportunity to go and visit and talk and see exactly how our dollars are being spent. And if you are a good member of Congress, you do that. And I do want to tell you about an experience in Africa, but I got to get through these other remarks. So if I have a chance, I'm going to tell you why I believe in this with my whole heart. We all know that my Republican colleagues have a weird fetish with dictators or wannabe dictators. So it should not come as a surprise that they're here attacking global democracy programs. For 6 decades, USAID has been vital in reducing global poverty and hunger, helping to resolve health threats like the Ebola outbreak, which reached Dallas, where I represent, in 2014, and countering regional threats from Russia and China. Not only is pro-Putin President Trump threatening economic warfare against our closest allies and partners, he's blaming Ukraine for Russia's invasion, threatening military force against Greenland, and starting tariff wars with Canada and Mexico. He's also defying a court order to release billions of dollars in U.S. foreign aid. This committee should be providing oversight of the executive branch's illegal impoundment of federal funds. But we're here today so that the chairwoman can peddle new conspiracy theories about U.S. foreign aid. The dismantling of USAID is just another part of the Republicans' chaotic foreign policy and pro-dictator agenda. Republicans are turning their backs on American farmers who provide nearly half of USAID's global food assistance. I'm going to stop here really quickly, because I think what happens is that when the American people hear that we're sending out money, they believe that we're just dropping bags of money places. And that's not what we do. But let me tell you, China does. China does. Because I've sat down and I've talked to people, and one of the reasons that we are behind China is because they have argued that there is no red tape. And China is like gangsters. Like, think about the biggest, baddest guy offering you money when you want it, like a loan shark, right? And then when they come back to get their money, they want your firstborn, your secondborn, and everybody else. That is who China is. But a lot of people that are desperate for money, they go for that, because in America, we're going to say, no, no, no. We're going to take care of our farmers. We're going to make sure that our farmers are the ones that are giving you the food. We're going to make sure that if you want arms, those arms are going to come from us. So I want people to understand, we don't just go with black bags and drop off bags of money like that. It's not that simple. But I want to get to a couple of questions because I know I'm running out of time. Mr. Unger, the chairwoman stated that, quote, the federal government has been sending billions after billions of dollars to push left-wing ideology, fund radical extremist groups, and usurp the will of the people abroad and here at home. Is saving 20 million lives through the president's emergency plan for AIDS relief, or PEPFAR, part of some left-wing ideology? Yes or no?
No, in fact,
okay,
PEPFAR was created by Republicans.
It was created by Republicans. Thank you for that fact. In fact, it was a Bush, a Texan. What about eradicating polio in nearly every country and cutting malaria deaths in half?
No.
Okay. So here's the other thing, and I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this question. We have been talking about USAID and trying to pretend like it's the devil, but when we look at the numbers, is it 50% of our budget that goes to USAID, Mr. Unger? Yes or no?
The money that goes to AID is less than 1 cent if all of the federal budget is $1.
Thank you. It is less than 1% of our budget. So we are focusing on less than 1% instead of the other 99%. I need the American people to wake up and recognize and start asking questions about these other areas, such as
the gentlelady's time has expired.
Jasmine Crockett is really just an unstoppable force out there. She is always willing to be unapologetic in her call out to MAGA. She is delivering the perfect message. And like I said, she did it again with this perfect call out in front of Congress that we got to take a look at right here.
It is time for us to say, Mr. President, guess what? Russia invaded Ukraine. Can we at least agree on that one? Facts matter. Y'all, this is literally potentially putting us into an international crisis. We may be heading towards the next world war because we have a president that wants to pal around with Putin and wants to do everything to make him feel good, including lying about who invaded who. Mr. Chair, I got a minute left, but I really want to yield to any of my colleagues and ask them if they will say today, very basically, that when it came down to the war in Ukraine, that it was not Ukraine that invaded Russia, it was the other way around. Is there anybody in here that has enough courage to say that Russia invaded Ukraine?
You can have my time.
And this is yet the problem.
They are cowards. And I hate to continue to return to this point, but I feel it necessary to say, so we do not continue to make these mistakes in the future, but it was wrong of all of the Democratic senators who voted to confirm Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, who has now fallen in line with Donald Trump's abandonment of President Zelensky, his abandonment of Ukraine, and his complete capitulation to Putin's wants and needs, his bending the knee, his kissing the ring, the love that he is constantly heaping on him. It does not matter who is going to be Secretary of State. If it was a Republican willing to join Donald Trump's administration, it was a person who would be bending the knee. It was wrong for Democrats to have given any legitimacy whatsoever to Marco Rubio because he is now using it and abusing it to turn on our ally and support one of our greatest adversaries. I have to keep coming back to that. We're going to talk about Jasmine Crockett. We're going to talk about that great takedown. And there's another great call out from Representative Robert Garcia, who's become a big figure on this show, someone we like a lot. But I just have to say that we cannot continue to allow any legitimacy to be given to anything the Trump administration does. And it starts with votes like that. Now back to Jasmine Crockett. We're clapping it up. We are clapping it up all the time for her. She does not care. She does not care about if MAGA's feelings gets hurt. She doesn't care about, she is just going to say the truth all the time. I love that call out and I love the silence. You could hear that silence. This silence was loud. Republicans who are on the record just a couple years ago saying the truth about the violent dictator that Vladimir Putin is, the disgusting invasion of Ukraine that he launched. Now where are they? Quiet. Afraid of Donald Trump. Completely spineless. And pushing his lies and pushing Putin's lies every single day. That's what we see out of this Republican Congress. It's sad. These are people who are supposed to serve. Of course they don't. Of course they don't. If they actually cared, they would be doing the opposite of everything that's happening right now. And a perfect example of that comes in the promise that I made of Robert Garcia's call out of Elon Musk and Doge.
This chart. Now, the Department of Defense is the only agency to never pass an audit. USAID actually passes audits all the time. And yet we're attacking the one agency that actually is able to pass an audit while we leave untouched the agency, of course, that can't even pass an audit. Last year, the Department of Defense failed to account for 63% of its assets. Trillions of dollars worth of equipment haven't been properly documented. And it's not just their failure to pass an audit. I want to just quickly ask about some key programs that are over budget and behind schedule. This, of course, we know here is the F-35 fighter jet. Will cost us $2 trillion over the course of its life cycle. These planes are often delivered late. They often cannot fly. And right now, we know that the F-35 is $183 billion over budget. Mr. Unger, which is more, the $183 billion cost overrun of the F-35 or the entire USAID budget?
The former that you mentioned, sir.
And this is the Littoral Combat Ship. The Navy, by the way, thinks this is basically useless in actual combat. could have a lifetime cost of over $100 billion, according to ProPublica. Mr. Unger, that's also way more than the entire USAID budget. Is that right?
Yes, way more.
Thank you. And I also want to just ask you about the Central Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Program, which has seen its costs soar over 81% during its program cycle. It costs $141 billion with cost overruns and soaring program cost. Mr. Unger, you know what I'm going to ask you, but is $141 billion more than the entire USAID budget?
Absolutely.
Mr. Unger, Elon Musk and his companies have received about almost $40 billion in government contracts, loans, subsidies, and tax credits. That amount, that roughly $40 billion, is basically enough to run USAID for an entire year. Is that correct, Mr. Unger?
That is correct for USAID's budget and the programs that it manages.
The majority isn't talking about Elon Musk programs or asking them here to testify. They're attacking USAID and are supporting a billionaire who gets richer every single day. We got to push back every single time, and with that, I yield back.
Now, Robert Garcia and I talked about this in the 2 interviews we had, 2 great conversations. I recommend you check it out. If Elon actually was so proud of all that he's doing at Doge with his stupid little tech support shirt, he would come before Congress. There have been subcommittee hearings. There have been committee hearings. There have been press conferences. There have been protests. Elon doesn't show up, doesn't answer any questions. Why is that? If you thought that there was a legitimate reason besides serving your own interests to try to get rid of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, oh, we spend $700 million on it. Yeah, it returns $24 billion to taxpayers. If you claim to be a business genius, maybe we look at that ROI, right? If I told you, hey, if you give me $7, I'll give you 24 back, I think you're making that deal. Trump likes to talk about being a deal maker. That seems like a pretty good deal for the American people. Obviously, that's not what Elon is interested in. And perfect to call out the bloated defense budget, not just because it's a real way that Democrats have always been talking about waste, fraud, and abuse in government, but because it is where Elon gets all of his contracts. So, of course, the most glaring example of the thing he claims to want to go after, he doesn't touch. Why? It affects those pockets. It affects those pockets. Can't touch that. No. Give him another 400 mil for those armored Teslas that they tried to cover up. That's what it's about to them. That's what it's about. We know that. That's what we're going to talk about, as you know, every single day on the show. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.